Hello and welcome everyone to this open conference part of the Product Leadership Festival and the Design Edition of 2020. As Menika mentioned, we have two presentations today under the open conference, and those were highest voted by the audience, by all of you. The first one will begin with Dipayan Thakur, and he'll be talking to us on ROI of UX design, and followed by Bhavana, and she'll be talking about improving customer experience in search results page at Big Basket. So before Dipayan takes over, let me speak a little about him, trying to introduce him to you. So Dipayan is a very passionate product manager. He's passionate about what following the mantra of do it with passion or let's not do it. He's self-trained chef like many of us and keeps on experimenting with multiple cuisines. He's a sports enthusiast, but watching it, not really playing it. His expertise lies in building customer-specific solutions in business process automation space. And as a senior manager at Conduent, currently is leading the implementation teams focusing on the omni-channel communication services, including customer communication management. He has worked extensively in the business of process automation, document processing, classification, ADR, and data extraction, OCR, imaging and scanning products in the processing field in the workflow-based systems. And like I said earlier, he's going to talk to us today on the ROI or return of investment of UX design in any particular company. So that being said, welcome Dipayan, and over to you.
So thanks, Suresh, for your kind introduction, and I'm glad to have you here in the Saturday afternoon. I know many of you have their own me time planned with Netflix and Amazon, and I'm sorry about that. So I'm spoiling your Friday evening, Saturday evening. But I'm going to talk to you about a very interesting session on ROI of UX. But before that, I would like to thank all of you for your wonderful support for voting me and nominating me to be here today. And thanks to IPL as always. They have been doing a great job having sessions like this and allowing people like me to participate and talk to you guys. So without wasting too much of time, I'll start with content. And here I am. So today I'm going to tell you about the ROI of UX design. And I'll tell you some interesting story around that. So the first one is the $300 million button. So once upon a time, back in 2008, there was a major e-commerce company which come to a problem to an UX agency saying that they are having a problem that the people who are coming to their site, they are trying to buy the product, but they are not able to buy the product because they keep forgetting their password and username. And the retailer can be Amazon or Best Buy, as there are many theories runs around which actually the e-commerce company this solution has been built, because the UX agency led by Jared Spool, they never disclose because of the non-disclosure agreement clause to the client for whom they did this solution for. But there is, irrespective of that, I'm going to tell the background scene, what happened behind the scene. So here it is. So whenever someone tries to buy some product from their website or the e-commerce site, once they select the product and before they add to the cart, and before they make the checkout button, they need to enter their email address and password to make the transaction successful. But this is a friction for the user, right? Many of us, if you remember, right? So how many of us still remember the password and email address? Many of us, we don't, right? And many of us, they don't even know if they have already created an account in this site earlier, or they have not created this account. So the UX team sit with these users to try to understand what actually it is happening, why there are so many people, they are not able to complete this checkout button and buying the product from the e-commerce site. So they did ask few questions to those users. They sat with the analytics team to capture some of the data. And the question they ask is how many users clicks on the forget password link, because that's a natural process, right? So when you forget your password and you want to do something, you click on the forget password button. And it's around 40 people. That's not bad, right? So 40% out of 100, that's not really very bad. But then again, they did more research on this 40% of people asking questions. How many of this 40% of people really go to their email address and then reset the password? And the answer is only 10. That's a significant drop in the numbers. And now they ask the most important questions. How many out of these 10 people, how many of them actually resetting the password, coming back to the website, and then logging again and complete the transaction? Any guesses? It's only 2 people. So out of 100, only 2 people are really converting to their actual paying customer. And that's a big loss for the company like Amazon. There'll be a huge drop in their revenue. So the UX team sit together and then they discover a new button. And the very first time in the history of UX, there's a new button come up like checkout as guest. So they did everything the user needs to do to buying a product, but they're bypassing the authentication because they don't want people to use their password before they go forward, right? So that works for, because if you know your password from an existing customer, you don't need to ask them again and again to do the same thing. That works well for the new customer, but that doesn't work, and the experience is really bad if there is already a paying customer and they have already used your product. So they replace this checkout button with the checkout as guest, and this design tweak has made a great impact on the overall revenue as well as the cost for the earning cost of the company. So there are 80% reset password request has been dropped, and the overall sales and the revenue has been increased $300 million per year. So that is how this button is called the 300 million button. But in everyday's world, you will not come across so many magical buttons. The story in reality is quite different. So if you see on a real case, like some of the newcomer for the e-startup or the e-commerce player, so for every 100,000 visitors that are coming to your website, if they don't find your product or your landing page quite interesting, they will drop off. Because the user attention, to grab the user attention is very only for a few seconds, only 6 to 8 seconds in user normally spend on a digital product to go, either he want to engage with your product, move forward on the journey, or he want to drop off and go for a different competitor product. So when somebody comes to your site and want to buy a product, if you see the stats here, there are huge significant difference between your product has been added and actual conversions, right? So if in this, if you see out of 100,000 visitors, only 2,000 visitors are getting converted into the real paying customer. So that's only 2%, but it depends on company to company, industry to industry. The average e-commerce conversion rate is around 3 to 5%, and branded company like Amazon, it's around 13 to 15%. So I'll show you some of the key matrices for this calculating the data. You don't have to break your head putting all this stuff in a spreadsheet and do the calculation around that, because unless and until you measure, you cannot improve. So I'll show you a quick few matrices. One of them is the conversion rate. So it is a simple calculations out the number of visitors coming to your site, how many are actually paying and getting converted. So this is a very interesting number. Every top executive, product managers keep on focusing, because this is how your revenue will come. The more customer come and buy your product, your revenue is going to increase in that many numbers. And the second one is the retention rate, right? So as we always tell, Grahak Bhagwan hai. We never want to let our existing customer let it go to and use a different product. And there are some interesting stats around that, right? So the probability of selling existing customer is 60 to 70% more than a new customer. And there are chances that 50%, you can sell the new product 50% more likely than, and they are going to spend more than your new customer. So nobody want to let it go, the customer they already have, because the acquisition cost of any customer is significantly huge, as you all know. So there's a simple math around that, retaining, how you calculate the retention rate. So for example, if you have 100 users by end of the year month, beginning of the month, and let's say 20 people added to your, you acquire 20 people by end of the month. So let's say that's 120. But in that range, you already have 15 people quit your site and they left away. So 20 minus 15 is 5 people. So 105 is your overall people that you have at the end of the month. And if you do this math, it will come around 85% of the conversion rate, which is pretty significantly good, right? So you need to remember this two key matrices. One is the conversion rate and one is the other is the retention rate, to improve your UX capability. Because if you see more number of drops, that means there is significantly wrong in your UX, because people are disengaging with your product. And to tell you next, I'll touch upon few of the practices for the user research. So let me tell you why we need to do any user research. So for the you need to understand your users for whom you are building your product, right? Because ultimately they are the guys who are going to use your product. So you need to understand their empathy. Then you need to understand and sit with them to understand what is their problem. Are we solving the real problem for them, or we are not solving the real problem for them? If the customer is expecting something else, are we giving those features in our product? So you do some analysis. So primarily there are two type of analysis we do. One is the qualitative, that we focus on why part of that, why users is doing in certain ways. So this deals with the emotional aspect, and we do qualitative analysis only for a very small number of set, because you need to really sit with the customer, go into their and sit with them, understand, do an interview, do your analysis on them, usability testing, to find out with insights so that you can grab those and improve upon. And the other one is the quantitative aspect of that. So it is basically give you a lot of data. You run this quantitative analysis for a very large scale of users. So I'll tell you one of the example on the quantitative, which is the A/B test. So A/B test is like, it's easy to understand, right? Here you run few tests. You want to test few features from your site, whether that is really making an impact or not. So you make two similar looking product with a little tweak on that special feature that you want to test it, and give two options, run those tests for a significant amount of time to grab the stats to see out of A or B, which is doing better. So to give you some more example on that, I'll tell you the story of Zalora. Zalora is one of the leading online fashion retailer for APAC region. So that they did an interesting A/B test. So the problem they were having is they introduced a new button, a new feature rather, I would say, on their product page to improve upon their number of checkouts. So they introduced a free delivery features, thinking that this feature will be improving our number of percentage of buying, how the user is going to use this. And the hypothesis they were testing is whether these features will work or not work. So, but they're getting several calls from their customer care center, that people are not aware of this feature. Many of them don't even pay attention to on their product page, even if that message is still there. So, and this is what the hypothesis they want to, initially they were trying to test. So they thought that the free return policy will increase the number of orders, but the reality was something different. So they come up with an A/B test, similar looking to different product page. They run this product page. So the A side, where initially they build, which was giving a problem to them. On the B, if you see, they did a little tweak around the free delivery area. So what they did is they changed the wordings from free in the right hand side to the left hand side, because that is the first word that person is going to see. Our human brain, when we read English, we read always from left to right. So the first word you will come across is the word free, and we all love free stuff, isn't it? Right. So, and that is how they grab the user attention more than the earlier version, and the number of checkout rates has been significantly increased to around 12% on a very short duration of time. So this is one of the success stories that I can tell you on the A/B test. And I think overall with that, I would like to conclude my presentation with a simple thought from Dr. Ralph Path, who is the CEO of Jaguar. He says that if you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. With that, I think I conclude my presentation. Over to you, Suresh. Thank you.
Right. Thanks so much, Dipan. Thank you for the fantastic session. We do have some questions coming up from the audience, and I'll just bring them up in a moment. I'll just try to check through it. So while you were talking about the startups and other companies, Dipan, what would be your thoughts? Because some of the established companies today have adopted, or rather invested in design in a very big way, and that's why you can see them succeeding, on a larger scale. What do you feel are the challenges, or maybe hurdles for startups to invest in design? Of course, everybody thinks that design is a critical aspect of the company, but we do not see that in the reality where people are investing
Yeah.
a large amount of money into design. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Suresh. So basically, in my perspective, we have to run through phases of this. So I'll take this as a four-step approach. So the first thing you need to understand is understand the problem from the customer, then build your prototype, run around the test around your prototype, whether the prototype is working, people are engaging with your product, or they're not engaging your product, and then come up with your data set on how the people are using that prototype, what are the key challenges, and try to iterate and improve upon those. Because that is how this is a continuous process. The UX design is a continuous process. It may work at the first time, it may not work at the first time, because you have to keep on doing and keep on investing and researching on this aspect, and then only you can improve
Sure.
upon your customer experience as we go forward.
Great. One other question over here is about what it reads like is, what are the metrics you should focus on in a B2B setup, right, where number of
Yeah.
customers are less?
Yeah. So B2B setup is primarily basically, that's an interesting question. So B2B is because the number of users are maybe very limited. So the key focus should be retaining those users. So you need to spend too much of time, a significant amount of time, because they're going to be your revenue generator. So you need to focus your customer retentions, try to engage them, try to upselling or cross-selling them as we go forward. And then also keep on focusing on the new customer acquisition as well, because that's all a bit harder in the B2B rather than, because that already work how your contacts are, on what business you are, and what are your competitors are. So yeah, so these are the key aspects you probably need to focus upon.
Right, great. I really liked, the quote which you have put up. Don't bother about the number of investment you do. Bother about when you don't have the investment done, and what's the cost of that not investing into design for your product. It's a great thought. Thank you so much for the fantastic session. I think the audience loved it. We do not have any more questions. Hopefully they'll be there on your LinkedIn page. Maybe you can go ahead and answer them, in your leisure time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So as a special token appreciation from all of us at the Product Leadership Festival 2020, hosted by IPL, which is Indian Institute of Product Leadership, here is a virtual badge for you. The QR code takes you to your own dedicated Hall of Fame page on the Institute's webpage. Once again, thank you so much, Dipan, for your time. Really appreciate, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thanks, Suresh, and thanks everyone for having me here. Have a good weekend too. Thank you. And I am sure there are a lot of interesting sessions coming up, so keep tuned. Thank you.
Right. Thanks a lot.